smoke a couple cigars a month kind of guy. If I wasn't married, I really love cigars. My wife, on the other hand, does not love cigars.
Oh, really? Well, wives don't like cigars? Amazing.
So I think if I wasn't married, it'd be more like 20 to 30 cigars a month.
Oh, man. Holy
cow. I would smoke one every day. I love it.
All right. The wheels are still spinning on the main app. Let's see. I'm getting a prompt to go live on Instagram. Still waiting for the main app. All right. Come on, baby. You can make this work. That wheel is spinning so hard right now. Just trying to make it all work.
We have really good internet at the office.
Ooh. Nate Streeter, we did it. We are live.
There you go.
This is like literally one of the only 20% of the times where we are live on Instagram, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, all at the same time with no errors. I'm already seeing people populate on Instagram. This is awesome. I'm seeing people populate on Facebook. All right, a little bit of housekeeping first, everybody, and then we're going to get to our special guest, marketing savant Nate Streeter, tonight. This is the Ask a Painter live show. I'm Nick Slavik. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I have been in this trade for 32 years. I've been running my own business for 17. I've devoted my life to this. This show, Ask a Painter Live, is a treatise on what it's like to be a master craftsperson and a paint business entrepreneur, a service business entrepreneur. And we plumb the depths of everything. We talk about the business side. We talk about oil primer. And tonight, something that is top of mind is marketing. Data and feelings. I'm not going to jump into it yet. We got housekeeping, but oh my gosh, this is going to be absolutely awesome. If you guys have not heard Nate Streeter yet, this guy knows more about marketing in our space than anybody I've ever heard before. Data and feelings, we're going to get to it. So number one, in this show post and notes, I have a link for you to apply for a free registration for the residential conference next week here in Minnesota. And you're probably going to see Nate Streeter there. Yes, Nate Streeter?
Yep.
Oh my God. You're going to be able to ask him. I would ask you to bring your Facebook and Instagram ads and show him and ask him for a critique of them, right? That's what you want to do next week, right, Nate Streeter?
It'll be so much fun. And no, I never get sick of marketing. So it'll be whatever you have. I might not have all the answers. There's going to be lots of other people there that are good marketers too. So.
Well, the problem is Nate Streeter loves marketing. He's very good at it. And magically, people have lots of questions for him. So Aleph is actually hosting a big tailgate party, a big kind of like penultimate event next week at their facility. So you want to see Nate Streeter. You want to see his office. You want to see the enigmatic Aleph guys and their home digs and party there. Literally, we're going to all be there. So there's a link for you to apply for a free residential conference registration in the link of this. I don't know if it was a good or bad idea. They gave me a board chair code for that. And they're like, hey, Nick, if you know of anybody who wants to apply for a free registration, I'm like, well, I'll just go live on the internet and share it with everybody. We'll just see what happens. Like, it's fine. So also, I started a new art project called One Page Weekly. I give myself one page. I write it. I curate it. I dub my own voice over it. I get video and audio from my farm. Crickets, moonlight. What is it? What are the lights in the sky? Northern lights. We video northern lights. I video nature. I put it all together. It's one page of my thoughts per week. And we put it out on the internet in a short 4 to 5 minute podcast, which you can listen to. I'm going to announce the winter retreat shortly. I'm going to wait till after the residential conference, and then we're going live with the winter retreat. There's 15 to 17 slots for the biggest thinkers in our space to gather at a luxury lodge with a private chef, yoga instructor, sauna. We cut a hole in a frozen lake. We dip ourselves into that. Last time we had a winter retreat, a Russian challenged me to a polar plunge, see who could last longer. And that was tough. We couldn't feel our legs. Bad things happened. It was pretty crazy, but that's what happens at the winter retreat. We have a link to the PCA event page here as well. We have the residential conference. We have commercial later in November in Scottsdale, Arizona. I will be at both of those things. Gathering of Minnesota Painters, GOMP, the flagship group in Minnesota, what we created, Gathering of Minnesota Painters. We're going to be at the Graco facility to see the paint sprayer robots, the ones that create the paint sprayers. And we're going to be doing a whole bunch of education. Jason Paris will be there doing his weird, enigmatic Elon Musk kind of stuff. And I will be there probably talking about oil primer and job costing. It's going to be an amazing time and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, all right, number one, there is a whole bunch of people watching already. My Brazilians have been chiming in on Instagram already. I think we hit the time zones correctly for the Brazilians.
Oh, good.
Number one, we're going to focus heavily on marketing, but really what we're going to talk about at a deep level is economics, the human psyche, buying, selling, supply, demand, all that other good stuff, price elasticity. So number one, Nate Streeter, who are you? Why are you notable? What should we know about you?
Yeah, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I was going to tell you, for those of you, I know some of you guys are going to be at Live 500, which is a big home service. I will be there, not presenting, but I'm just going there so I'll be in Las Vegas the last week of the month. So shout out to me if you guys are going to be any of you. I know some of the big painting companies are going to be there. And if you're going to be there, I would love to meet up with you in Las Vegas. Both I and Caleb will be there. So two of our top marketers from our team will be there. And we are there just to learn from, these $100 million home service businesses. So it's going to be great. So even though that's not a painting event, for those of you guys that are going to be there, or if you're just in Las Vegas, I'd love to meet up with you while I'm there. So
interesting perspective before you dive into your bio, which is, I am a $3 million company. Paris is a $12 million company. Aleph Holdings, $50+ million company. Don't forget that there's other home service people operating that are hundreds of millions of dollars in the space. So lest we think that sometimes we are the big fish, there's always a bigger fish, right, Nate Streeter?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And these guys are they've already solved most all the problems that we're still struggling with. Yep. Okay. So, I think I don't know how far back you want me to go, Nick. I like many of you, I just grew up in a poor family that, we did paper routes on the weekends. And as a teenager, I was entrepreneurial. I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur. I hired my friends to help me with those paper routes. Yep. And I did like a lot of people when I graduated high school, I just kept doing what I was doing. So I just kept doing flyers and newspapers and things like that. And like many entrepreneurial people, like many of you, I bet, within a couple of years, I was like, I think I could do this better. So I started a business when I was 21, and things went well. We doubled our business every year for many, many, many years. And lo and behold, 2012, 2013, 2013, I think, is when I was introduced to Jason. He was like, hey, I got this, painting business I'm trying to grow. So I started working with him pretty much right from the beginning. And to be honest with you, I wasn't always super keen on working with painting businesses because I was used to working with the bigger home service businesses, and they had big budgets, and I felt like they were more realistic. And a lot of times when I worked with painters, it was like, but Jason was different. And so I was like, this is great. And so we had a great relationship for many years. I was his top vendor. And they got most all of their leads from Paperboy. And so we did that. And like a lot, I had just a few life goals, basically. Like I wanted to get a basketball hoop. I know this sounds stupid,
That's
but
awesome.
these are like my life goals. As I wanted to get a basketball hoop, I wanted to get a motorcycle. I wanted to get a hot tub. And like a lot of poor people probably too, I wanted to pay my house off. And so systematically through my adult life, I did those things. I guess now I've even had 3 motorcycles at this point. But I think for me, when Leah and I became completely debt free, it was like, I was just, I was really dumb, but I just thought it was like a mic drop, basically. Like, hey, like, what else would you want to do? Like, so this happened in 2018, 2019-ish. And I put my business up for sale because I was like, well, I don't need to do this anymore. I could go do whatever. Like, I don't even have a mortgage anymore. I could just go, you know. So I didn't know what I was going to do next. And it was great. The guys at Aleph, I'm just kind of shortening the story a little bit here, but the guys at Aleph said, hey, Nate, we're interested in you joining our team. They shared the vision with me a bit of what they were trying to build into the future. And so I got a few shares at Aleph and joined their team. That's really my story. I've worked there for 5 years. And at first, the first 6 months, I worked out of the day-to-day at Paperboy. And then since that point, I was, for about 2 to 3 years, I was in charge of Paris's marketing. And really, we did a lot of transformation because they were pretty much just doing flyer delivery for the first year. And they were, I think, $4 million, which was still a good sized painting company. But, and then I helped them grow up to 10 million. And we also had this other business, Haven Builders, that I helped go from 600,000 to 10 million before we sold that one.
That's awesome.
So that was a lot of what I did for those couple of years. And I also helped build the customer experience systems a bit at Paris Painting as well. So, but that was not the goal. The goal is to build a holdings company. And really in the last 2 years is when we've been focusing on that. So I trained Caleb. Many of you guys have met him. Brilliant marketer. He came right out of college, and he runs all the marketing at Paris. He's doing it much better than I ever did. So I've worked completely out of the day-to-day. I don't have anything to do with the day-to-day marketing at Paris anymore. He and his team do all the marketing there. They're going to do 12 point some million, I think, this year. Plus roofing is another couple million, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So, and he's in charge of that too, in case you guys are wondering. Yeah.
Yep.
Now I just lead marketing for the brands that we have at Aleph. So we have 15 painting companies across the country that we own a part of. We own like 40% of each of their companies. And I run a marketing team at Aleph that helps them with their marketing. So it's what we call fractional marketing.
Yep.
They hire my team we do everything, from digital marketing. We do all the strategy planning. We're helping them build local flyer teams, we do a lot, soup to nuts, and we're not like a normal marketing agency. We're not for hire or anything like that. Because clearly like our company owns these companies. So it's a lot different than a traditional marketing company. But that's what I've been doing over the last, let's call it year and a half, is figuring out what that looks like. Because I'll be honest with you, Nick, building marketing for one brand is a lot different than building it for 15. So
okay, before we dive into that is like, you have an immense, you might have one of the most unique data sets ever, and we will attempt to plumb that as we go. What I heard you say is you owned a marketing company. The guys from Paris Painting, before there was Aleph Holdings, contacted you. You did a bunch for them. You became a very integral vendor to them, so much so that they purchased your company.
Yep.
Brought you in with the vision of, hey, we're going to create this Aleph Holdings. We're going to partner with a minority stake, potentially other ways, painting companies all over. And Nate Streeter, what you did for Paris Painting, there's a bigger vision out there. We can do this for tens or hundreds of painting companies around there. And that's where the fractional part comes in. There's probably not many painting companies that can afford to hire Nate Streeter and your little internal firm to do this. But if you spread it over 14 companies, then all of a sudden that's where the fractional part comes in. It becomes conducive to good P&L.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. We're just trying to create as much value as we possibly can, for them. And marketing it's a big, important component to scaling businesses. If you don't control your lead flow, you're not going to be able to scale.
There are so many things. One of the things that spurred on you and me meeting tonight was I had some bandwidth to consume a large amount of Aleph Holdings TV on YouTube. And between you and Caleb, I'm always impressed by the things that Jason and all Hoken and everybody else does. But when I heard you guys talk about marketing, it to the T paralleled the data and the feelings that I have in my company. And there's not many other firms that I can reach out to that have robust data that you can trust. actionable items, things like that. And I was just very impressed by the rigor in which you guys sort of operate in. So let's talk about our industry is at least 90%, potentially up to 99% single owner operator businesses. Most of those humans that I talk to think about, well, listen, I'm a painter now, but eventually I want to get out of the tools and then I want to operate a business that doesn't need me. As far as marketing goes, what is the actual reality of doing that in those stages? Number one, just stop painting. Number two, potential shareholder.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of steps to that, right?
Yeah, lots of steps.
And I think, it's sort of interesting because I think if I drew a path for that, I would say like, well, let's just use some numbers. Like if you're a $400,000 painter and you're trying to get to be an $800,000 painter, you're going to have to do a little bit of what Jason did and Nick did and some of these other crazy entrepreneurs, which is you're going to have to hustle. And a lot of that is just, it's shoe leather, man. Like you guys got to knock on some doors next to the projects you're doing. And you got to send out, I mean, you got shout out to Nick, you got to send out all these emails each week that are so great. I love what you're doing. You need to just,
do you get my email marketing?
Of course, we consume everybody. I consume everything I can.
What? Oh my, I didn't know you're on that list. That's great. Well, I'm sure so listen, when I send out emails for my business twice a week, I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of industry people that kind of get caught in my net, give or take. Yeah. So I didn't know that you were one of them. That's awesome. After this, I would like a full critique, by the way.
I know. So I think like you got to hustle during that period. And then when you get up into that 800,000 to 1.2 million, now, again, there's a lot of variables in this, so I'm kind of just speaking in such general terms. But okay, now we got some marketing budget that we probably could start working with, right? And I think you start really with some of the low-hanging fruit in my mind. These are things like LSA ads. This is things like maybe you hire either a Facebook agency or depending on the market you're in, it might make sense to do a Google agency for search ads. And it probably, ironically, doesn't make sense to do like a flyer delivery or door knocking. I actually love flyer delivery and door knocking for a $400,000 business. And then maybe again, when you're like 4 million. And I know the reason why is because it takes so much energy to do it successfully is what I've seen. So if you're going to actually have a team of people on your, door knocking or doing flyer delivery, it's a lot of work. And $1-2 million businesses, for the most part, I've seen they really struggle with the bandwidth to have, they're just trying to run a painting business, not have a flyer team or a door knocking team. So hiring an agency maybe to do something like Facebook or Google ads, I think it makes a lot more sense at that stage. But you have to sort of pay attention to the numbers, right? We see just like what you guys see, which is, well, our Facebook ads, we get success rates that are closer to like 30% instead of 45%. It's like, okay. And we've worked hard. Some of our partners have much higher than that. So shout out to you guys who do. But yeah, they're just not quite as far along in the sales process, right? Marketing is just part of the sales process. You always have to think about it like that. Good marketing brings people further into the sales process, right? But no matter what, when you have something like door knocking or Facebook, you're almost always inevitably getting them much much more new in that process because they just haven't done as much as if you did a postcard or they looked up painter in Prior Lake, right? When they're doing that, they've already probably had a bunch of other things that came before that.
I feel like what you're saying a little bit is during when I hear hustle, the word hustle, I hear labor, not money, right? Yep. So if we're going early on in a painting business, and this might be even up to 1 million, 1.5, we might be talking about shoe leather. We might be talking about calling your neighbors, calling your friends, going door to door, exploiting your network in the best way possible to do that stuff.
By the way, even for our $4 or $5 million companies that are in the Paris group, we still do all that stuff. It's just that we can automate more of it. So like, I think like people have this idea like, well, I could stop doing that. No, we never stop doing any of that. Yeah. It's just that the owner's not doing it anymore. And
Yes.
we're
Yes.
figuring out other ways to do it because they have a bit more robust budget and we can automate more. And so we never stop any of that stuff.
Yeah.
My biggest
Okay.
companies, they're doing yard signs, they're doing all that stuff, just way more organized. Like we make maps every week for all of our partners, for
Yeah.
instance, with yard signs. So they know exactly where to put them.
Yeah. So, okay, this is interesting because now you're paralleling some data that I have, which is early on, you get out there and you're making calls, you're talking to your people, you're doing stuff, having kids sneak into your room, and
I was just wondering what this did.
So we've turned this into the kids lounge. So now, honestly, I can't blame them. So it used to be my office with all my trophies with my face on them, and now it's their room. So.
Well, my wife came out here and cracked the window open because, like I told you earlier, she's not a big fan of cigars. And so,
like every other wife, yep.
Yep.
Okay, so early on, you are doing the shoe leather. You're doing a little bit of effort, but it is a really good point to say that you don't magically cross this Rubicon into large business and you just shovel money out to a Nate Streeter style business and they solve all the problems. This beautiful mix, and the longer I learn about this, is just like investment portfolios, the more diverse and not only in channel and area and way you contact people and frequency, but also in labor and effort. So I think what I heard you say potentially, and what parallels my data, is that you do a bunch of effort and you don't lessen the effort and increase your money to a marketing agency. You build upon that effort. That effort always stays there. And in fact, it may increase as well. But then you're also at some point, one of the most profound things I heard you say in the content that I consumed this week was, you need to control your leads. And you can hold it up as a badge of honor that 90% of my clients are word of mouth, repeat, and referral. The problem with that is I give you the challenge, double that next year. The hell do you do? Right? So you need to control.
Many of you probably saw your repeat referral if you're tracking them closely. I bet many of you saw them actually go down this year. And that's not because you did anything wrong. Maybe it is. You might have bad customer experience or something, but it's just because that trend, like you mentioned earlier, Nick, is that it tends to follow the demand, and painting demand is down this year. And so your repeat referral numbers may go down. And that isn't necessarily anything you did wrong. You can't control the demand for the product or service.
I got to halt you right there because it is so profound what you just said. Demand for painting services is down. That is a amazing statement that affects all of our lives. How do you know that to be true?
Well, I think there's a few different things. I mean, one of the things that I just mentioned is one way we know, which is for brands of ours that have a solid brand, they're not doing anything wrong from a customer experience standpoint. We've seen several months this year where their repeat referral numbers were down from last year.
Yep.
And so that's a good indicator, right? It's the same. I guess there's other numbers. So like we look at web traffic. So this is another thing. How many people are looking up certain terms in a specific geographic area? We see those numbers go down. The third is go talk to Sherwin and ask them how much paint they sold. And they will tell you that those numbers are also down. So I guess I would say, well, any metric that we've seen tells us this. So I don't think there's any metrics. Now, every market might be some, there's variations, but overall, it's definitely down.
Yeah. I don't want to downplay the fact that when you say, well, with some of our companies with word of mouth, repeat, and referral, it's down. There is so much to that statement. And I just want everybody to pause, which is you have a reputable business who has standard operating procedures. They focus on customer experience. They track basic data. You can trust the integrity of that data, and then you can make decisions on it. If you don't know where your people contact you from, if you don't know where people find you and then ask for an estimate, we can't even begin to have this conversation. So I don't want to just go past this point of, it takes so much consistency and professionalization to get to a point where you have a business like that produces the data that you have so that you can actually rely on it and factually say the demand for residential painting services is down this year. Like this is not a feeling. This is data.
Yeah, my team would be lost without that marketing data each week. Like we wouldn't know what to do. We're such data-driven marketers. Like if we didn't have the data each week, we would just stay at home and smoke cigars, I guess.
Yeah. What do you, well, let's put out another Facebook ad, right? It's like one of those things.
Every change that we make to any marketing, every decision we make is based on data.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Okay, so let's talk about. I reached out personally to you because a lot of the things you and Caleb were saying were directly in parallel to the things that I've been experiencing, data and feelings this year. I have not seen anybody forward thinking out there putting out content that paralleled what I've been experiencing. For any followers of Ask a Painter, you guys know that for 6 months, you've been following along this thing where it's like, oh, leads seem to be down a little bit. Let's dig into that. And then you guys have followed along the Odyssey. What outside of demand going down, what are you guys seeing? Put this time period into perspective. What are we going through? Is this a recession? Is this inflation? Like we always love to talk about these things. Put this into like economic perspective for us.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an economist, so too bad Jason's not with us here. Someone called him an economist the other day. I'll be honest with you. I got a chuckle out of that.
Honestly, he called when we all say, Jason, you have an econ degree. And he'd be like, well, I'm not an economist. Like, what the hell are you then?
But what I can tell you, like, I think I spend a lot of time actually each month telling people that there's nothing wrong with their market. There's nothing, the average job sizes that they have, is more a reflection of their sales team, not a reflection of the market. I'm telling people that every month right now. And the reason why is I just have data. There's tons of our partners where their average job sizes are up this year. Tons of our partners were average job success rates or close rates, whatever way you want to call it, are up this year. So, but you also see that their sales skills are up. So I think those are things that have more to do with it. So, but to answer your question more directly, I don't think we're in a recession. I think we have, man, you said it in your other podcast so eloquently, which is, well, we have this huge amount of demand that came in 2020, 2021, 2022, like nothing we probably really have seen for decades.
Why is that?
Well, because people were home. You've said it, like people were home. And I think you guys could logically think through this. Like if they painted their house at 2021, like they moved maybe a decision, a different way to think about it is they moved a decision they might have made down the road up to 2021 because they were spending so much time at home. That could create, something that's going to come in the coming years where demand isn't going to keep at that level necessarily.
So you could actually rob demand from now to pay demand there. So if you think about it, like, okay, so imagine all the kids are learning from home who aren't already. All the parents are working from home. It's illegal to go to Italy for the vacation. And we actually had anecdotal evidence of like, we would have spent $12K on a Italy thing. But since we're all home, we're gonna put in some built-ins. We're gonna paint the house. We're gonna paint the trim, and It was big. So it wasn't one of those things where it's like it's great to put it in this perspective. And I agree with this assessment, which is it wasn't that there was free flowing money more than normal. People spent that a little more abnormally, right? But I think the biggest takeaway that I've been having is that wasn't everything stayed the same and then we added a bunch of stuff. It's that we moved up things that were probably going to happen anyway. And I think what we're experiencing now is that sort of almost like, I don't want to call it hangover because I don't want to call it down because we're kind of going back to normal, but it feels like people are just like making rational decisions again or slightly more rational decisions.
Oh man, is it Austin at Base Coat?
Yes.
Okay, he said something earlier this year that you guys, man, I hope you caught what he said. And he showed a graph, and it was so brilliant. Shout out to Austin. He showed a graph, and he said, "Hey, when demand goes way up, supply usually lags behind that, right? It's natural. But then what happens is when demand goes back down, which is likely where we are, the supply doesn't follow it perfectly. And we have been in that in between probably for a year and a half now, where demand's coming back down, but supply isn't, it's not going to follow it. So what does that mean? It means there's probably more painters than there's ever been, but the demand is going down. And it creates some instability in the market. Now, I believe next year it will write a little bit more, because there'll be tons of chucking of trucks and standing of vans that this winter they're just going to be like, this isn't worth it anymore, and they might retire or whatever. But it's a great time to be a professional painting company in my mind, because what you want to do is see your professional painting companies around you succeed. And the more that professional painting companies succeed, the better it will be for everybody who is a professional painting company.
That's exactly it. This is not, and to put into perspective, because I love this, because, this entire conversation and my content consumption and everything else was spurred on by leads are down. And all of a sudden you think cataclysmic thoughts, Great Recession. I've been through this before. Unemployment's going to be high. Defaults on mortgages are up, credit card debt up, and things like that. Or it could just be that we were at an elevated period of demand and spending and are coming back down to normal. And I shared this to you before the thing, which is the craziest piece of data I've ever seen is the GDP of the United States tracked my weekly leads to the T. I mean, the graph was literally like laid on top of itself. You can't see the other one. So It's been a very interesting period of saying this is not a bad economy. It's just coming down from some crazy period that was slightly irrational. Not only did we have a probably 10-year tailwind behind us of demand for what we do because there's not enough professionals, but then you add in a global pandemic, sharp downturn, insane upturn, and we're slightly coming down back to exactly what GDP is in 2019. Give or take. So
one of the things I was going to, you got to be careful, Nick. You keep talking, going through all these such sophisticated numbers. They're going to start recruiting you at off. I already see this happening. They're going to be like,
don't think we haven't been in a 6-year talk, Nate.
Okay. The thing is, I want to give you another anecdote that I think is so fascinating. Like, we've been doing a lot more reactivation. Okay. So your repeat referral numbers get strained. And what do all these painting companies think about? Shout out to Brandon Lewis and others who are so good at reactivation. And I'm sure he's seeing painting companies like, we got to get out there. We got to contact all our past customers. And that's not a bad idea. But one of the things that I've seen is we increase our activity a lot on reactivation, like knee jerk, right? Like, sales are down. We got to do something. We don't have a lot of money, so we got to go. Well, you can actually create that same rubber fan effect that we just talked about. I've watched, because we track our numbers so close. So, like, let me give you an example. Our numbers are down for one of our partners in May. We do a ton of reactivation in May.
Yeah.
What happens is the June repeat referral numbers go way up. But then what happens is basically July and August, they're back down even further, because all we've done, we haven't created demand necessarily. What we've actually done is just pulled some of those decisions forward.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the reasons that I'm not as big a fan for these sort of knee-jerk kind of reactivation or different things like this, is that you haven't really done anything. All you've done is just move some things up. And so I'm much more a fan of like a consistent 48 to 52 week reactivation strategy with drip and all kinds of other things. It's a much better way to do it. You catch people exactly at the time that's right for them rather than what's right for you. And that's always a better way to run a business.
Oh man. So the longer I do this, the more I realize that we talked about the investment portfolio, diversified, not only in money and effort, but in channels, and then consistency. It's just, I started off years ago thinking that, hey, listen, winter is hard. So let's devote every single dollar we have to winter to drive demand in that time. And I was challenged years ago that somebody said, well, listen, on paper, that feels great. You have less business here. You have more business here. Divert marketing to try to increase demand. The problem is you really can't change demand as much as you think you can. And The other thing is a emerging trend in the market is exactly what you said, which is you might be pulling from other areas. So you might have this thing where you have two estimators and you sit them down for a week and they make 75 phone calls a day. And you're like, oh my God, we're getting all these estimates. We're getting all these jobs. And then you have this like hangover crash, right?
Yep.
It's like you're proactively make happen things that would have been spread out evenly. And you just have to be really careful of that. Especially
it's good. I don't want to give people the wrong idea. That's a good strategy, but it's not the best strategy. So it's good in the sense that most painters never call those people. So they have no reactivation strategy. So then it's great. A lot of these people are like, oh, I haven't heard from you in a couple of years. That's sort of bad if that's the case. But what would be much better is to have a strategy that happens every week consistently all the time. And that is well thought out based on when the demand would be high, not when you need it, right?
Yes.
Like you need to think through when your customers need you, and that's when you want to be in front of them. And I think things that we talk about at Aleph a lot too, when we think about this, I didn't mean to bring you in this direction, but we need to be surprisingly helpful, right? Yeah. And we need to constantly show them that we care about them and their house.
Yes.
They don't care about us. Yep. Like, I don't know, no one cares about you. So, and I don't mean that to be fake. I made my kids read How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And they all hate that book now because they think it's very manipulative. Yeah. But I feel like my kids totally missed the point of the book, which is, no, you should actually care about people. And it's the same thing. You should actually care about them in their home. It should be natural that you'd want to call them 90 days after the painting project to ask how it looks.
Yeah.
And a year later and make sure that they know that there's a warranty and you're ready to come back out if you need to. Like, why? Because you care about them in their house. You're not trying to sell them more painting.
Yeah.
Right. Now, guess what, though? The surprising result of caring about people in their house is that they will sell you, they will buy more painting from you, right? Like, but that's not why you do it. You do it because you actually do care.
That's it. And I think that it's really interesting, like as somebody who's created systems, grown a business, scaled, and then handed things off, you always wonder about what is the culture? Are they going to follow the SOP? Are they going to do it as good as me? And you mentioned at the top of the show, young Caleb is like rocking it out, right? And when I hear him talk,
not very many things I'm more proud of right now. Yeah,
dude, listen, what he has. He's got a tiger by the tail, man. His responsibilities are vast and deep, and he's got a great accountability system around him, and it's all data driven. What's interesting, though, is that it's not this cold-hearted serial killer data driven stuff. I don't think that I've heard you guys express in the correct percentage how much you guys actually care about the customer experience. Like, I have insight into your guys' inner workings, and you guys have like customer advocates that you employ.
See, like, I think it's so good. I wish that everybody could come to a Paris monthly meeting.
Yes.
Because if you actually went, you'd think that Darcy runs the company. She's our customer advocate. Yep. So much of what we talk about once a month is on customer experience. You'd think she was the president.
Yep.
And so, but that's so much of our focus at Paris is like, we're really like just trying to figure out how, and it's just logic, like, make it good for the customers and it's going to be good for your business. Right.
Surprise, right?
Right. Exactly. So, but yeah, she's a rock star. If you guys get a chance to see her when you're up in Minneapolis, like, amazing. I'm so lucky because I led the customer experience team for several years and trained her up. And of course, Alex has been, and now Mark is her boss, which she's so lucky to have him too. So, but these are all things like, it's not just the monthly meetings, like their compensation packages are built around this. Every single person that works at Paris, they have bonuses tied to customer experience metrics.
Yep.
And they're not little bonuses. We're talking about, and even like coordinators, they have thousands of dollars worth of bonuses.
So real quick, now that can be squishy somebody's happiness is very subjective. We all know clients where you do the same thing over and over. And some people are just like crying at your feet, love letters written, tips to the crews, 5-star reviews. And some people feel like they've been taken advantage of. How do you quantify and bonus client experience?
Man, I have such a good like when I owned Paperboy, I worked with a bunch of big home service businesses, right? And I watched, I helped one of the local garage door companies go from like 2 million to 15 million.
Yeah.
And I did some business coaching with him for sales and marketing too. So I got to see like the inner workings of his business. And it was so great because one of the things that I saw was these people you're describing who they literally, there's people in this world, unfortunately, that just go around taking advantage of companies. They sort of have figured it out, right? And I remember at one point asking him, I'm like, because he would just write checks basically, to get these people out of the way quicker.
Yeah.
And I was like, how much money is that costing you every year? And he's like, he quick looked it up because, they tracked everything. He's like, $38,000. And I was like, that's insane. Like, he's like, did they deserve any in that? He's like, no, this is just like our people who are taking advantage of us kind of numbers, right? That's the mistakes we make. And I was like, why do you do that? And he went through it very clearly to me. He said, look, Nate, it takes my team more emotional energy, more than $38,000 worth of emotional energy to fight against it.
Oh, yeah.
Just write the check. That is an extreme example, but the reality is it's the same as true for your painting. Yeah. It causes you way more harm to push back on that $800 or $1,200 or whatever. Just do it. In fact, Alex, he's brilliant. If you guys you guys got to get a chance to meet him too in our office. Not many people I look up to more than Alex. One of the things that I learned from him is like, we wouldn't try to ever give people their money back. And you might think, oh, that's because Aleph in Paris is so cheap. No, it's nothing like that. Giving them their money back is way easier than trying to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
The reason is because we don't want someone out there who still has the problem. We would do everything. Yeah. We would move mountains if we had to fix that problem, you know? And so, because that one, negative person is going to have an effect on your brand. And so you just do everything you possibly can, to uphold your reputation. And I can tell you, working with Alex all those years that I worked with Paris, there wasn't a single time where I saw him make a decision where I wasn't like, man, we're doing the right thing here. Like, we always did the right thing.
There's a point where you're a single owner operator and you think, well, listen, how could I hire a painter? Because nobody's going to treat my clients like me. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you go through this arc of growing a business, and there will guaranteed to be times where the customer experience is not as what you want it to be, as optimal as you want it to be. That's just, it comes with it. It is what it is, right? It almost becomes easier at a point when you become a very large business with even shareholders, because the shareholders only care about, is my asset worth anything in the long run? And so there's this healthy sort of like interplay when you have people removed from the business and shareholders saying, we could blow it out of the doors and do a 26% net profit next year, but we'd probably make a lot of angry clients. There's a direct trade-off with that. Yep. And then this asset that I'm a shareholder in would be worth less in the long run. So what we want is a good, consistent, I would take less this year, but I want it to go on for 47 years into the future, right? And so then it actually, in a way, this is sort of like, this is not typical, but you would think the larger the business, the less of the client experience. There is a phase where the client experience is actually more important than sometimes the smaller businesses.
Oh yeah. Like over 5 million. Like I've said this to many partners of ours. We have a lot that are under 5 million, obviously. Yeah. And I said, you aren't thinking about this very much, but as you approach 4 to 5 million, this becomes more and more and very important. Yeah. But I think a few little tips and tricks about customer experience, I would say, is you can't have the people who have like equity, like social equity with the customers. Like they've been on the paint job, like they've been communicating with the customer regularly with the paint job. Usually that's either your crew or your project manager. They can't do like an NPS score. People lie.
Yeah.
So you need some kind of Switzerland in the equation.
Yeah.
So yes, when you're a bigger company, you could have a customer advocate. That's a wonderful position. They don't have any tie. The customer knows from day one that there's a customer advocate. If I ever have a problem, I could call them. They're not connected to anything to do with the job. They're just there in case something's going wrong, right? That is wonderful. You're right. But so that'd be the first thing, is try to find Switzerland. Shout out to some of you guys. You have your mom call or something. That's brilliant. The second thing is, do not ask them on a score of 1 to 10, how would you, would you refer us to it? Yes, ask that question. I know that's the NPS question. But if you listen to the way Darcy does it, when they say, oh, it went good, don't stop there. It's just like sales. Ask like, well, what went good? And then like maybe ask like, well, what could have been improved? Like, and then when they list off 4 things that can be improved, you say, she would even ask them, are you sure that that's a 10? Then you just told me 4 things that can be improved. And then they'll often be like, well, yeah, maybe after I think about it, maybe it's more like an 8.
Yeah.
She just wrote all that stuff down for our team.
Oh.
And she's not going to lose any money on that. They're not either. We're gaining a lot of learning, right? So I think, yes, Paris has a bunch of touches. We ask them after the sales. We're doing a bunch of things from a customer experience standpoint. But I think also just having those kinds of things, thinking like that, of like, do you really want the feedback? Because that's what I think happens with a lot of trainers. They don't actually want the feedback.
And even if you want it, are you going to do anything with it?
Well, right. And then you just train everybody, right, to just ignore it, right? So, yeah.
Oh, okay. So as we round out this show, we're coming around the bend of an hour. Let's actually, I love the esoteric. I love the weird stuff. I love the economics. I love the perspective. Let's actually talk some nuts and bolts stuff here. So I'm going to give you a couple scenarios. You give me the quickest, most robust answer you can, Nate Streeter. You are a single owner operator. You want to grow to something bigger than yourself. You don't know what it is, but you know you need more leads and more estimates so that you could potentially hire employees. You don't know when that is. What do you do next week in order to get more leads?
It's just like if you have a sales rep, they should be doing the exact same thing that a sales rep should be doing. So there's 3 things that we talk about for what we call self-gen. The first is events. So you could be going to a BNI, a chamber of commerce. These are the kind of places. Go find the people you want to do business with that will bring you business regularly. Some places in the country, BNI is great. Some it's terrible. I get that. But find events you can go to throughout the month so that people know you're the painter in the area, right? Or in whatever area you're, if you're commercial, go meet with the commercial people, right? So the first is you need to go to events. The second is that you need to be active with that list that you have. It is a gold mine. So many of you guys come to me, you got a business that's been around for 30 years. You got 1,200 people on that list. And then I ask you the next question that I almost hate to even ask, which is, when's the last time you got on the phone and talked to those people? And you haven't. And I think, again, don't just call and ask, do you want painting? Do you want painting? Do you want painting? No one wants that. Yeah. Care about them. They're home, consistently do that. So the second thing is utilize the list that you already have and create a plan around that. Mm-hmm. Then I would say the third thing I would recommend is the hustle. Mm-hmm. Every job you're out on, make sure you get yard signs up. Many of my partners put 100 yard signs up a month. So they're not just putting them at houses. They'll put them at the beginning of neighborhoods, stuff like that. Dang. The other hustle things is, do those 5 rounds, 9 rounds. Like, well, you want to hustle or not? Like, go, you got 10 extra minutes, go knock on a couple neighbors' doors. Say, hey, I was just giving Mrs. Smith an estimate. I just want to stop by, introduce myself. It's not that hard. You can do that. Yeah. So do some of that hustle stuff. Try to get some incentives for your crew and different people if you can to do hustle stuff. We do a lot of things like that for all of our partners as well. But to me, I would just do those 3 things sort of as if you're like a sales rep who's trying to create more self-gen for yourself, right? Don't think that some marketing company is going to solve all your problems for you. Like every single week I have people coming to me complaining about wasting money with marketing companies. Yeah. I'm not exaggerating. And it's not that the marketing companies are terrible. It's just you have unrealistic expectations of they're not going to transform your business for you. That it just doesn't work like that.
Yes. Before I offer the next phase of business and solicit some solutions, I do believe, and I know that I've heard you or Caleb say this, which is congratulations, you're an entrepreneur. You need to solve labor and you need to solve leads. If there were people like Nate Streeter and Nick Slavik who you could call and would solve all that for you, all of your competitive advantage as a business owner, as an entrepreneur would go away. There'd be no incentive to do this. So there are things like, I want to hit on one final thing before we leave, which is a very simple sentence that you said, but I feel like people are thrust into owning a paint business when they weren't prepared for it. They didn't intend to, and they look for people to solve labor and leads for them. And I am here to say, and I know that you guys are here to say, that there's no humans out there that you're going to be able to just tap and they're going to solve for you.
Yeah, I would even take that further, Nick. The marketing companies out there, I've worked with many of them, the painting marketing companies.
Yeah.
The success,
you guys use a lot of them as vendors.
Yeah. The success stories that you hear from them are people who are hustling.
Yeah.
Like it's not that the marketing company isn't bringing the value. And that's not the point I'm trying to make. What I'm just saying is the rocket fuel to make whatever company you hire is going to be your effort.
Yeah.
Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whether it's, I mean, we could talk. I mean, I see a few of the comments people I'll talk about every single marketing, you can get into some of my other videos where we go into a lot of details about a lot of marketing campaigns. I just am going to release one in a couple of weeks that's way detailed, but every marketing campaign can work. Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong with Facebook. There's nothing wrong with Google. There's nothing wrong with direct mail. We're proving it. We can win in everything, but it will not work if you don't participate. You can't just sort of hand that off and it, like you're saying, like delegate it.
Yep. Okay. So let's talk about the $800,000 to $1 million painting company. I feel like you're either in or exiting the valley of death. You're approaching the period where you can hire your first estimator or project manager or office admin. What forms of marketing do you see work or not work, or marketing advice you would have for somebody of that stage?
Yep. I think a little bit of it does depend on where their skills lie. So if they're really good at creating content, capturing things, then I would say, okay, maybe we should start doing some Facebook ads, right? You already, they've already developed some skills that way. I can see it in their social media platforms already. They're already getting some leads from their social media platforms. They've developed some followers, right? It's like, look, you're already doing this. Just add some fire to it. Put some money behind it, right? Like, so if they're already doing that, I think the second one is, same thing. Some of you guys come to me and you're like, we can already identify there's 4 or 5 neighborhoods that everybody loves you. It's like, well, let's figure out how to dominate those 4 or 5 neighborhoods. We can do that with direct mail. We can do that with yard signs. Like, just focus on those. Paris focuses on like 10 neighborhoods. Yeah. People think like we don't even need to be in a big market, honestly, so you could do $1 million in each neighborhood.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So, I think though it depends a little bit, like, again, I want to see, it's really hard to swim upstream, figure out where the stream's already going and go with that. And that's why, like, if you looked at my 15 partners, they all have different marketing plans because they're all different businesses, if that makes sense. So some of them are really good at digital and we pulled into that. So I don't think many of you are quite as good at that, but sometimes you are, and that's something we could push into.
I feel like if I extrapolate the data from my own business into others, but you can scale a business at 300 to 500K on word of mouth, repeat, and referral, and after that, you do need to control your leads and pay for it and have levers to pull up and down. Yes, agree or disagree with that data point?
And not only that, I don't want any lever all the way up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's not control. Like, I think a solid, scalable marketing system is one that you've got a bunch of levers in front of you and nothing's all the way up.
Yep.
That's control.
Yep.
And that's all I do all week long is just add levers. You see what I'm saying? To a business scale. So, that's basically what we do.
Data point then. Let's talk about either partners or Paris or whatever you have access to the data and reference knowledge, is when you think about all the channels in my company, there's 13 ways generally that we try to get to people and they could potentially come back and ask us for something. By percentage, what is the highest percentage of one channel that brings people in?
Yeah, I like this. I love this question. I mean, those of you who follow me, I want 33% to be from repeat referral. If it's too much more than that, I'm losing control.
Yep.
Like, I don't want more than that. If it's too low, it's too expensive.
They're free and they're the best. So naturally, we just want more of those. Like, oh, let's just do 100% word of mouth repeat referral. Yeah, you're shaking your head vociferously.
Nope. Because like short term, yes. Like, because you spend 4% of your gross on marketing instead of 6.5%. I get that. That's 2.5% more in. But you don't come to me unless you want to get to 10 million. And if you want to get to 10 million, we need a controllable marketing system. And you're not in control if it's 60% is repeat referral.
So a third word about repeat referral. What's next?
So next, I want to have a third in digital. So this would be Google. This would be Facebook. This would be, we do some SEO, but I think you guys would be surprised. Not all 15 of my partners even do SEO. So that's like that group, right? And then a third in neighborhood. Right. So I want to dominate neighborhoods. And when we dominate neighborhoods, all of our other metrics go up. Our repeat referral, our digital, everything goes up. So I love neighborhood. Of course, we have a long history at Paris, for a variety of different reasons in neighborhood. But it's also very difficult to execute outside of direct mail. Even direct mail, I think you guys were so surprised. Caleb had 270 unique postcards he sent out this year. Awesome. Unique. That means unique pictures, unique headlines, unique everything. Right. I don't think people realize how much effort's going into some of that, that he's accomplishing. It's a lot.
So you can say direct mail and it feels like you're taking a scoop shovel of cash and throwing it there. But there's also, I feel like the best marketing results happen when you combine that beautiful mix of effort and money. Because money, in order to reach the amount of people you want, money is the only way to do that, right? Like, unless you're social media, natural, organic followers and whatever is so vast that you're in the top 100th of 1% of influencers in the industry. But outside of that, money is going to buy you access to these humans, and the effort to constantly think about content, specific content, things like that. That beautiful combination is that. And I think the entire industry wants no effort, some money, problem solved, and it just never happens.
Yeah, and there's a few painters out there too that have very unique skill sets. Like I look at some of the Instagram painters, I'll call them that. That's not something I can replicate amongst 15 partners. Like they have a very unique skill set, and hats off to them that they can do that. But if I could figure out how to replicate that, I would.
Well, it's as simple as, I talked about this today in a mastermind group that I was in. They were asking me some questions. And one guy was like, yeah, I got a project manager who does $2.5 million in res repaint a year. And he also paints cabinets on some of the site. I'm like, do not depend on that. That is an outlier. He's probably burned out. And he's like, yeah, he's actually kind of feeling burned out. I'm like, yeah, no shit. He's doing 3 jobs. He's doing 2 project manager jobs. He's also painting on site. And like that, you can't scale a business on outliers. Like you'll happily take them and be like,
Mike taught me so much in this. He's like, superstars are a huge curse. Like you need a system where you can hire, not any schmuck off the street, but decent human beings, as you talk about a lot.
Human beings.
And we want a system like that where we could just hire another sales rep, another project manager. We don't need superstars. If you have a superstar on your team right now, that's risk as far as we're concerned.
It's a threat vector. So give me 1.3 to 1.5 of produced residential repaint work. Give me 8 of those people where they're consistent. They show up every day. There's no highs. There's no lows. That is a way better business, more professional business than you got a rock star who's burned out, burning the candle on both ends, 2.5, painting cabinets on the side. And you're just
same exact thing. I want you guys to think about that. That's the same thing for marketing. We're not trying to create some superstar thing. We're just trying to create 8 different things that are producing relatively consistently and predictably. right? And that is exactly the same. It's just more controllable and scalable.
You got it. Two things that you say over and over and over again. I want to, and I may not do this perfectly. You want to be local and present. You want to be, are those the exact words or are they different?
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
okay, you say them so much, and Caleb says them like Clockwork Orange opened his eyes and made him watch this thing and said he is programmed to say, I want to be present and local. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's because Caleb has seen the light. He has all the data now. And he knows. And he took this idea so much better than I ever have. And I'm so proud of him for that. The thing is this is not a new idea that we came up with. Look up the top 10 painting search terms in your area for Google, and you're going to find this is exactly what people want. They want painter in Fire Lake. They want, like they're looking up these kinds of ideas. They love the idea of hiring a painter who's painting someone else's house on their block.
Yeah.
They love that idea. And so the reality of it is like, we're not making up something there. We're going with what people want and believe.
Why do they want that? Because it's proof that there is a company that's actively operating. Somebody that lives near me and is in my demographic trusts them. Yes. Is that this embedded sort of like trust, or is there something different than that?
Yeah, I think it is. Like, I think everybody's worst fear, and you guys have, many of you, like I've done a lot of things on my house now. And I was shocked at how bad people are who home service business.
It's a horrible experience most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I literally had, like many of you guys have these stories too. We've shared some horror stories, but like I had a guy who was doing like my chimney work, and he didn't come for months. I had to literally sell his scaffolding at one point just to recoup some of my money back. Like, that's what people fear, right? They fear this, like, clearly someone is not here caring about me. Yeah. And so that's what you're fighting against, is like, how do I position myself? And we've talked about this too. Like, we've added words like friendly, because that's sort of part of that, is like somebody that they can trust and that they think is like caring about them, their neighborhood, their kids, their community. Like, the more you could present like that, the better. Right. So,
okay. So let's say painter is going to bootstrap some stuff. He's going to make an Instagram and Facebook post. He's going to post organically every day. How does he, in the best way, be local and be present? Simple SOP for a organic post on social media.
Yeah, I think the first thing is it needs to be very genuine. So not salesy. You're not trying to sell them anything. You're surprisingly helpful, right? So if you're going to do something educational, it needs to be surprisingly helpful. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You guys, I've seen lots of things that you guys have done that way. I think it's probably not like $500 off and like that,
deals and coupons and
because that doesn't feel like, to me, now hats off, some of you guys are making that work, but we don't try to do anything like that. We're not doing big offers and stuff. And so I think, even when you entertain, can you connect it, to something that's happening in the community or something that positions you that way? So when you're thinking about these things, you're not just trying to make a viral video that's entertaining. You're purposely thinking about how to position yourself as something that they clearly see as like, oh, yeah, I know that high school. Yeah, I know that elementary school. I love that restaurant. You see what I'm getting at?
House that looks like my neighborhood house.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So every piece of content that you make, you can be thinking about that as far as how to integrate these kinds of elements into it.
Okay. So I want to round out the show by probably my biggest takeaway, the most profound thing that I feel that you said in the content that Aleph Holdings TV has put out, and which spurred on this conversation. I've probably done 21 Ask a Painter live shows where we some way dabble in leads are down, what's going on, perspective, data, here's the feel of the industry. You said in one sentence, which encapsulated all 21 shows of Ask a Painter, which was, painters be frustrated. And well, actually, you use the term resent, I think.
Yeah, they resent marketing. They resent having to think
Yeah.
about marketing. They resent having to do marketing. They don't want, they feel like, why wouldn't people just come to me? I'm the painter. Like, why do I have to go out
But
and do
because
this?
why though? Why do they expect that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just their view of themselves, in the sense that, again, they view themselves as a painting company, not a marketing company. And this isn't something I should have to think about.
Yeah.
And you guys have heard, it's funny because Jason has talked about this too, of like, there's really two jobs you have if you're building a business. You're not self-employed, which is to get lead. You're basically the middleman
Yeah.
of the leads and the labor. But that's exactly what
That's all it is.
everybody complain about is, I got to go get the labor. I got to go
But
get the
Nate,
lead.
I'm a painter.
Right.
I'm a
Well,
painter. I
if
want
you
to paint
are,
houses.
yeah, then you're not building a business. That's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to build a business, these are the things you need to be primarily good at.
What you said so eloquently, and I was telling you that I was sitting here, I had the bandwidth to consume a lot of marketing content. For the longest time, I've had your guys' videos. I see them there and it's like, oh my God, this isn't something I can consume while I'm doing something else. I have to active listen. So I had to just like chalk these up. I had that time. And I was literally like walking around this room in a circle, pumping my fist when I heard you say the words that painters resent marketing, because the average paint business in the United States goes out of business every 18 months, which means that the entire industry has turned over multiple times, maybe twice, maybe 2.5 times since the start of COVID. The time of COVID has been exemplary. It's been interesting. There's been irrational money, irrational thoughts, irrational economics going around. And even before the time of COVID, there was a 10-year run of there's not enough home service professionals. The demand far exceeded the supply of them. So basically, it's been a cliche, and we joke about it, that hey, Mike in a bike starts a painting company and he puts a phone number out. He's not a crook, and he actually answers his phone, and he has 2 years of work. And that can lead you to believe, oh, well, marketing genius. I do great paint jobs. I take care of my clients. I'm going to grow to $8 million, give or take. Times are changing. Yep. We can look at it by the data, and that is going to round out this entire conversation. And the reason we're having this, which is our industry, having turned over 2 times since the start of COVID, has no embedded culture or knowledge of what has happened before. My business started in the Great Recession, 2007. I started then. I didn't know times before then, good or bad, right? In the late 1980s, there was 18% interest rates on mortgages. We are besides ourselves when it's 7%. You know what I mean? Like, we have when the average paint business only lasts 18 months, we have no perspective on what this time actually is. So we are completely mistaken who we are, what we do, what times we live in, and what it means to run a business in this time. And then that leads painting business owners to resent marketing, which is, I'm not a crook. I always look after my clients. I have a phone number and a website and a Facebook.
Sometimes I answer my phone.
and now, and you know what? I answer my phone at least 3 times a week when I'm not painting, right? And it's like, I have always prided myself in pre-qualifying clients. Well, listen, if you don't have the budget or think you know the budget, I pride myself in booking out 18 months in advance.
Man, did you guys see 5-star? I think it was Brandon Pierpont had 5-star on, and I love their like 3-3-3 rule that they're doing at 5-star right now. I know it's a franchise, but answer the phone within 3 rings, get to the estimate and give them an estimate within 3 days, and paint their house within 3 weeks.
Oh, dude.
That's what they're telling all their franchises in 2024. If you want to win jobs, you have to have the 3-3-3. And I think, again, so many painters, I can already see your angst when I even say that. It's because you think like you're not thinking what's best for the customer. You're thinking what's best for you, which is being booked out more than 3 weeks and not having to answer the phone. And hey, if I can't get to an estimate for a week, yeah, but that's not what's best for them. You got to think about what's best for them. And there's so many thirsty painters in your market, I guarantee it, who could come out that same day and give them an estimate and be painting by the end of the week. I mean, there's that many thirsty painters right now. So shout out to 5-Star who's preaching that kind of message, because to me, that's the right kind of message. It's like, think what the customer wants, not what's, you don't matter that much in the equation. I hate to say it like that, but
Nate, we could go on for another hour about that sort of thing, where we can delude ourselves into thinking that, well, listen, I mean, I'm a residential painting company. We need to talk about budget first. That conversation only happens in a market where there's not enough of you around, right? Mm-hmm. But in a market where there's lots of painters looking for work, and one of the anecdotal reasons that I went on a 5-year data dive into my company and started learning about GDP and consuming Aleph content in an active listening format is that on a forum, painting contractors, Tanner Mullins forum of 230,000 painting contractors, I was seeing contractors from the upper Midwest in June saying they had gaps in their schedule. Nate Streeter, if you add up the weekdays, the working hours, summer months where the temps are in spec, it's not too windy, it's not raining, it's not a weekend, and it's not a holiday, you got about 74 working days in the upper Midwest to paint all the houses. And when somebody has a gap in their schedule in June, the highest demand month ever, say something is different here, and that's something different. My initial hypothesis was potential recession, alarm bells are going off. What's going to happen? Get ready for layoffs, downsize the team. Everything's changing. What I really found out was, to bring this whole conversation around, is that we're just on the downward slope of the most insane high we've ever seen in our lives.
Which, by the way, you can beat that. I mean, tons of our partners are going to grow 50 to 100% this year.
Yep.
Yes, like my team has a lot of work to do. We're going to probably end the year at 88 or 90% of the league goals. Yeah. But we had big goals at Aleph, right? And we grew all of our partners, many of them by
our goals aren't, we're at 1 million, let's stay at 1 million. You guys are like literally, we want to be doubling businesses every year.
Yeah. So we go from 1 million to 2.2, in a year like this. So it's like, so I think like you can do it, but yes, there's a lot of work that goes into that. That's sort of the secret sauce, is all that hustle, right?
It is. It's hustle, and it's the management of the marketing. So even if you hire a marketing company, you need to manage them, you need to support them, and you need to be actively. No, I can't point to almost anything in my business. I can't point to almost anything in my business where I shovel cash at, and you're like, wow, that was awesome, right? And you're like, no. If I want one of my vans wrapped, it is 17 emails, proofs of stuff, inspecting the final product. And then 6 months later, if anything peels, you go back to them and start. I mean, it is literally like down to that sort of thing. So in hindsight of all this stuff is, I want people to understand that people know me for the data and the feelings. I have a lot of very simple data that I can present in a very clear format. I am but one company. I have an anecdotal data set into hundreds of businesses around the country. Nate Streeter, who we're talking here tonight, has deep working knowledge of 15 of the most professional firms in the United States, inner workings. He is the one driving the potential success or failure of these things, the marketing. You need leads for this. So the information that we've presented here today, I want to put in that perspective of there is not another human outside of Nate Streeter. There's not another Nate Streeter you can go to that has inner working knowledge of 15 other professional painting firms that can give you this in the residential space. So thank you.
Hey, thanks, Nick. I mean, gosh, I think though your data I watched your marketing presentation not that many weeks ago, and I was probably hitting my fist in the air just the same way you were. Like, I don't think like we're necessarily doing anything all that novel, if that makes sense. And there are people in the industry that are doing things that are novel. Shout out to Eric Foz. Shout out to, Brad Ellison. I mean, like there are guys out there that are doing very novel marketing things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like those are all people that I would continue to watch too, because they are really pushing the envelope in a lot of areas.
I don't want to downplay what you and I are doing or what this industry is doing, but the things that you and I do, this simple data that we track, and you on a much higher level than me, are what drugstores do and grocery stores do. And like garage door companies. And you think about like Bonfi heating in our area, you know, all those, it's like they're being in this industry would lead you to believe that people are less sophisticated than they are. We are in the Neanderthal phase of this industry. There are so many other businesses and industries that are so much farther along the way and more sophisticated. And like you said, a short 56 minutes ago, there are so many people who have already solved these things. You know,
well, even in the painting industry, one thing I think I've learned this year, I developed a marketing group that we are a part of. It was out of actually the Expo, because what I realized is, all these $5+ million companies, this is not really marketing material for them, right? The Expo isn't. And so I said, hey, let's get together once a month. We'll all just talk and share stories. What I realized is there's a lot of $5+ million painting companies. They're just not very loud about all the cool things they're doing.
Yeah. They just operate.
Yeah. And meeting with them every month has been so helpful for me and for Caleb, because what we realize is like almost all their pains are the same as ours. The things that they've struggled with are different things. So there are probably painters even close to you that might be those bigger painting companies that do know a ton. They might not be, they're not trying to build a holdings company. They're not trying to, right? But they have a treasure trove of information if you really get into it with them.
Okay. So let me summarize the conversation, which is, if it feels harder this year, it is. It's going to cost more to get leads. It's going to take more effort. It's not because we're in a recession. It's because things are probably going back to normal times. Things are still great. There still is a lot of demand for what we do. There's still not enough of us professionals. And honestly, the way to win is not a magical psychological ad that tricks people into buying your thing or a magic price. It's literally nuts and bolts, boring, unsexy, mundane, consistent branding, marketing, getting people to see your colors and logo and services and vans and yard signs and social media posts over and over and over again, and delivering a good service when they actually contact you.
That sounds good. Yeah. Be authentic, I think, is probably a way I would say that partly.
Yep. And hopefully authentic to you is, I like what I do and we do good things for other humans.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So people are going to have lots of questions. I believe that the teeter-totter, remember those things that we need to do. We need to solve labor and we need to solve leads. Those are the two main things. And I think literally that word salad originated, I believe, from you guys at Aleph to say, listen, when you boil this entire thing down, you need to find leads and you need to find labor. And if you can't do that, you're not a business owner, or you're not going to be a very successful one. I believe that teeter-totter has flipped from where are all the good humans to now where are all the good leads. And I've seen that anecdotally. I've seen that in the data. I've proven it with data in my business. And I've seen you guys prove the exact same data point. So what we're looking at now is a multi-year run. I don't believe we're going to be heading into recession. I believe there's a soft landing. The economy is still good. Anecdotally, maybe better for the highest, maybe worse for the lowest. Either way, it's not recession. It's not depression. It's not Great Recession. There is going to be more demand for what we do. And I think in our industry at this time, the way to win is basic business professionalization and consistency over and over and over again. We don't need a new app. We don't need a special software. We literally have access to all the same things. It's literally just data. Consistency.
It is funny to me because I hear a lot of painters complain about software and different things. My team could complain about software every day too. And there's a couple times a year, shout out to Alex who puts up with me, where I might go on a little bit of a rant for an hour or something, but we don't have enough time to complain about software. Like, we just figure out how to get shit done. Excuse my language, but like, don't let kind of stuff, get in your way. That's not how entrepreneurs need to be. Like, we just got to get shit done. Yes. Like, everybody has software issues. Are you kidding? I haven't talked to a business any business I've ever talked to in the history of businesses has software problems. So this is, not the, and what my grandma used to say is so perfect, which is if it was easy, everybody would do it. Thank God it's not easy.
Thank God there's a barrier. There's a moat around us for people who have high pain tolerance and are willing to solve problems, labor and leads.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So people are going to have lots of questions. The most important thing in the next couple of years or seasons of our industry is going to be now marketing and leads. And you are an expert with a unique perspective. I can't think of another Nate Streeter in our industry. People are going to have questions. How do they get a hold of you if you're even open to that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'll be at the residential, forum next week. I will be there speaking on Friday, but I will be there Thursday night for many hours. And I look forward to hanging out with you guys. We'll talk shop as much as you want. You can follow me home if you want to. It's fine. So I think
careful. We got a bunch of nutty followers. Ask a painter.
So I think that's fine. I'll be at Live 500. I will of course be at the PCA Expo. You can always email me. Lots of you guys do. I always tell you, hey, if you want to email me, Nate@Aleph-mgmt.com. That's always fine. I might not get back to you for a week because I have a day job. That's not, answering painting questions, but
day jobs.
Yeah. But if you are able to be patient for a week or something, usually I have some time where I can get back. The more detailed questions you guys ask in email, I will just tell you that fires me up so much because I love, I got one yesterday and he was asking me so many questions about reactivation and how do we ascribe this and how do we do that? And how are we tracking, heat maps on our websites? And I made a whole video today about that. I was like, okay, I'll show you everything we're doing. It's fine. We're very transparent. So there isn't any secrets because even if I thought it was a very competitive environment, I would show Nick everything. Well, why? Because I'm competitive and I'm pretty confident I could execute at a higher level than him. And even if Nick did get it at the same level, he's not threatening me. He's threatening more of the handyman painters than he will be threatening Paris painting, if that makes sense. So there's no secrets. We're not trying to keep anything. I think you guys maybe think we're doing some secret thing. We're not. The more we show you, I think you guys realize there's no secret.
You guys, Paris is 12 million. You have other partners in Minnesota too. I am about 3 million. I can count on one hand how many times I've seen a Paris sign in our territory. And I know you guys can too. So literally we're going to do 750 jobs. You guys are probably going to do 3,000 jobs. That would lead you to believe that every other house we see Paris. Oh my God, his yard signs literally we never see traces of your partners, even other painting companies.
Yeah, so we have maybe you might make the argument we have 4 or 5% of the market Paris does.
Yeah. Yep.
That's nothing. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So, okay, Nate, you're the man. It's late. It's family time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, man. You speak my language. I speak your language. You confirmed a lot of the things that have been largely data-based, but kind of still feelings for me. And to have somebody with the robust data and knowledge you have, far surpassing mine, to basically come alongside my data points is okay, good. This feels good. Our data is rigorous. It's actionable. We can do some things. And I feel very comfortable about putting that out to the industry so that we can all professionalize and better ourselves.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, man. All right, everybody. Thanks for spending the time tonight. Nate, if you are ever willing to do this in the future, I feel especially with marketing being important, we should probably be doing a semi-regular show about this.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm open for it. If you want to do it several times a year, I'll do it. I mean, I love talking about marketing. You guys mostly all know that. So, I know this might sound weird, but this is kind of a nice little treat for me because all day I just solve marketing problems and stuff. So this seems very fun to me just to be able to just talk shop for a little while.
Taking a step back from it and talking about all the whys and everything else is kind of fun. So, awesome. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching Ask a Painter Live. I got a whole bunch of links and handy things in the notes here. Nate will be trolling the comments like I will too. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything else, we'll be there for you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Youth deer hunting in Minnesota starts tomorrow. I'll be out in the woods with my kids. Good luck, everybody. Appreciate you.